Roughly a decade ago, my favorite video game of all time taught me a lesson I had no interest in ever relearning. The game was Destiny 1, and the lesson revolved around what a time waster pure RNG portions of any experience can be. Some folks couldn't get exotics from raids because of the uninfluenceable odds stacked against them, but for me it was a weapon called the Grasp of Malak, something you could only get from the final boss of a 3-player strike with low chances of dropping to begin with. By the time I got that weapon, I wasn't even excited about it anymore. The game had managed turning my interest into resentment. You're probably asking yourself why I'm rambling about Destiny when the title of this video clearly says Balatro? Well, while I'm about to eat a fair amount of crow for my original take on the game, the correlation to my Destiny experience can't be understated. To some degree, I could see talking about Hades here as analogous too. The difference in those other games, though, is that even when I can't get things to roll my preferred way, I still don't feel like those games are ever wasting my time while also making me feel like a failure for the RNG aspect that's out of my hands. And I will forever argue that anyone turned off by the sound of what I just said being a routine part of a gaming experience probably shouldn't play Balatro. I'm still finding that about half of my runs feel doomed. Sometimes the doom factor isn't obvious either until I'm toward the end of an hour-long run. This lack of give a damn for how much time invested by the player can go to waste remains what I think of as the game's largest flaw. What you might not know about me is that I'm both a math and poker nerd. I've won some Texas Hold'em tournaments where real money was on the line, and I'm apparently one of the few people who got 100% of the trophies in Clicker Heroes without using the exploit. That's not a humble brag, by the way, I just didn't know the exploit existed. Clicker Heroes is quite similar to Balatro in terms of the underlying math systems, and my feelings about both games improved the more I engaged with the late game mechanics. So yes, the short of what I'm here to say is that I'm changing my 10 scale rating of Balatro from a 6 to a 7 after having discovered that there's an expanding set of content to interact with, synergies which sometimes make the increased difficulty manageable, and a lot of other little things to love which were easy to miss before being 100 plus hours into the game. What I said near the end of my original review is that I'd continue to chase the smaller trophy unlocks here, and chase those I bloody have with an increasing desire to continue playing. In a game where a lot of the jokers are weak sauce and where every joker slot tends to be crucial, I can't imagine myself ever going all the way to platinum here, but coming back to it again and again over the course of years may prove me wrong. Stranger things have happened. What mostly irks me now about what I initially said about this game is that I'd rather play Sudoku. While I know Sudoku puzzles are always winnable, unlike certain runs in Balatro, Balatro also tends to be far more interesting in the moment-to-moment action than Sudoku will ever be. Once I'd accepted that this game is more about deck building and math than it is about poker, I found it much easier to enjoy myself. And when the game's odds are in your favor and you've enough experience to know what things synergize with others, the Ruth Goldberg machines you'll end up making toward Ante-8 feel amazing. What newcomers may not realize at the outset is just how content-rich the game gets. There are a lot of cool decks, my current obsession being the checkered deck, which has only 2 suits and is ideal for flush-related runs. There's a ton of powerful jokers which eventually open up to you. The bonus challenges do a great job of highlighting what's possible with the deep system the game's creator delivered. The game may offer relief to a variety of addicts, definitely to gamblers, as the only detriment to engaging with this particular addiction is time loss. But so long as they're enjoying their time with the title, I doubt they'll see it as time wasted. The difficulty's stake increases are fairly tame when compared to other games. You can personalize your deck with face card homages to loads of other indie titles, and all of the add-in items like card packs, skip tags, etc. are forever threatening to become game-changingly important from one round to the next. One thing I've really begun loving about this experience is how useful all of the moving pieces end up being. Rarely have I had a successful run where I was completely ignoring any given system. Sure, sometimes you end up almost never seeing tarot cards like Hangman during runs where you're hoping to thin your deck, but that doesn't change the fact that the systems which are here provide a stunning amount of depth and variety, leading you to routinely play in unexpected ways. It's one thing to have a plan for how you want to approach a run here, but it's something else altogether to end up lucky enough to execute that vision. And that keeps you scrambling in interestingly alien waters. The frustrations are real, but so is the bliss that comes from being adept enough at the game's many mechanics to the point that you can often have just enough luck to successfully roll with the punches. The way Balatro pushes you to keep an eye on every system is what makes it impressive to the point of greatness. I've found that my runs usually begin with hoping for a solid joker pool, which will give me room to breathe for getting my money building power up. Once the economy is solid, I lean on a chip joker, a plus molt joker, and a few times molt jokers. So long as you've seen those things and know how to evolve your deck based upon the joker setup, the game feels more than rewarding enough to keep coming back to. That strategy I just mentioned can happen all out of order or not completely come together though, and you'll still find yourself working with contingent notions on the road to a potential victory by not sleeping on things such as seals or initially hard to land hands. It's an experience which is routinely complicated from start to finish, and that will deeply appeal to certain types of gamers, even if it strikes others as the least amount of fun ever. And when it comes to a game with pros in the guide videos talking about how you should expect losses, while recommending usage of things like spreadsheets and such, it's hard to fault many people for owning that this game isn't for everyone. Anyway, I'm up from a 6 to a 7, but what would it take to make this game an 8, 9, or 10? A small change I believe would go a long way is the introduction of a rewind feature. Can't tell you how many times in the thick of things I've hit the wrong button and sold a joker without meaning to, or played a hand without checking that it's going to play as intended, such as selecting a flush without realizing the 4 of a kind is what's going to be counted. These things can kill entire runs, and I'd love the game to be more forgiving of accidental inputs. Accessibility would also help tremendously. With very few exceptions, I'd have missed out on a lot of what some stellar games had to offer if not for the godlike modifiers. True of everything from Hades to Dead Cells to Celeste, I doubt I'd have ever even played Cuphead enough to get good if it didn't have a simplified difficulty to toy around with at first. Clearly, battling actual bosses in some sort of visual way, plus a storyline would be more than welcome, and I struggle to think of any game I'd ever rate a 10 if I couldn't play it with friends somehow. When I say accessibility features, by the way, what I mean for this game would be things like an option to guarantee that each shop will contain every type of pack, the ability to pick a certain joker to show up in your run, even if there are rule sets about uncommon and rare ones not appearing until late in the antes, and a way to shut out your least favorite jokers from being offered at all. Maybe even a way to give yourself better odds of consistently landing a specific tarot card. I'm aware there are folks out there who believe accessibility features are like training wheels for gamers, and they don't want them anywhere near the games they love, forever gatekeeping those experiences that are locked behind a challenge wall which some people aren't up to handling. But the footage you see on screen is as close as I've gotten to that 100 million score in a single hand trophy. I'd been playing the game for 5 straight hours, 4 of those hours being failed runs, and when you're all out of free time in the day to keep trying, you're going to reflect on that stint of gaming and quickly realize that you got nothing at all done. And it's just down to luck once you know how to approach the experience. This game is an engine builder. I've seen the blueprints of other players' insane scoring builds. I know the orders in which to build their engines too. It's a frustratingly simple matter of whether or not the game's going to let you secure the necessary pieces, and with rounds enough in the endless mode antes to finish it out before hitting that crazy point spike required to continue. And what that level of RNG makes me want to do is put the game down forever, because it's not up to me as a player to determine when the correct engine building will happen. All I can do in terms of putting my thumb on the scale is to throw even more empty hours of dead-end runs at the game until it randomly happens. And that's the case here with so much more than just the 100 mil trophy. So what I'm getting at is that the difficulty hurdles you'll face with Balatro are often asinine. When I can spend a few minutes outside of your game and feel like I got more done by brushing my teeth and pissing than I did in 5 hours of continuous play, it feels beyond reasonable to point out what I would if playtesting this pre-release, that this experience is lacking in terms of a satisfying sense of control. As intricate and innovative as most of these systems are, they're nonetheless too similar to playing bingo. That's an enjoyable activity for a while, but you'll eventually recognize that the win isn't up to you. You can buy more cards to give yourself a statistical edge, but you are never in control to any degree that's equal to the random element at play. Were it not for the differing deck options you unlock through wins in Balatro, or how good the engine feels to drive when things do come together perfectly, I doubt I'd even have picked this back up after the first few hours. I'm not alone in feeling this way either, and that fact lays bare that Balatro hurts majorly for more in the way of player agency. The game flat out doesn't respect the hours you give it much of the time. That's a giant problem I wish more people were shining a light on. But those are my updated thoughts. If you can't tell, I'm more than a little out of my comfort zone because my opinions of a given game tend to be more than settled when I review it. However, I was wrong here. Not by a lot, but enough that I couldn't stop reconsidering the semi-hot take I originally offered up. The critiques, I still feel, are plenty deserved. The developer pulled off something miraculous in terms of style, depth, and originality, but the time-wasted runs will forever be unwanted for someone like myself. The only people I can think of who dig those are masochists. Why are those the players being appealed to in this particular arena of exclusivity? Regardless, I didn't speak enough or even recognize clearly enough all the things Balatro gets right, which propel it to the plateau of games I'd argue are fucking great. Here's hoping this particular rant makes up for my having given the game an incomplete shake. I've made clear in a number of places that my reviews aren't guaranteed to be more than impressions, depending. But I couldn't leave this one behind me without revisiting it. Thanks for listening to my opinions. Feel free to drop yours in the comments. I'll be back with another video soon. Now, please enjoy some footage of my addicted to Balatro ass crawling back to the game and managing the 100 million. We lucky ones are eventually allowed. The last thing I'll leave you with is the tip I've yet to hear from any of the other how-to videos around, which is that you should eventually do away with your chip and plus mult jokers, since your hand level may make them near meaningless in the late game. You're much better off adding another helpful X mult joker, or one which increases your hand size, etc. I hope it helps. Thanks again for watching.